The Story of Civilization, Part 2. The Life of Greece, being a history of Greek civilization from the beginnings and of civilization in the Near East from the death of Alexander to the Roman conquest, with an introduction on the prehistoric culture of Crete by Durant. Chapter 19. Philippe. Section 1. The Spartan Empire. Sparta now assumed for a spell the naval mastery of Greece, and offered to history another tragedy of success brought low by pride. Instead of the freedom which she had promised to the cities once subject to Athens, she levied upon them an annual tribute of 1,000 talents, $6 million, 1938 US, and established in each of them an aristocratic rule controlled by a Lacedaemonian Harmost, or governor, and supported by a Spartan garrison. These governments, responsible only to the distant ephors, practiced such corruption and tyranny that soon the new empire was hated more intensely than the old. When Sparta itself, the influx of money and gifts from the oppressed cities and obsequious oligarchs strengthened the internal forces that had long been leading to decay. By the 4th century, the ruling caste had learned how to add private luxury to public simplicity, and even the ephors had ceased, except in outward show, to observe the Lycurgian discipline. Much of the land, by dowries and bequests, had fallen into the hands of women, and the wealth so accumulated gave to the Spartan ladies, free from the care of male children, an ease of life and morals hardly befitting their name. The repeated division of some estates had impoverished many families to a point where they could no longer contribute their quota to the public mess, and therefore lost the rights of citizenship, while the formation of large properties through intermarriage and legacies had created in the few remaining equals a provocation in the concentration of wealth. The homoioi, or equals, numbered 8,000 in 480 BCE, 2,000 in 371, 700 in 341 BCE. Some Spartans, Aristotle writes, own domains of vast extent, and others have nearly nothing. All the land is in the hands of a few. The disfranchised gentry, the excluded Perioeci, and the resentful helots, Perioeci, made a population too restless and hostile to permit the government to engage on any large scale of space or time in those external military operations which imperial rule required. Well, an empire doesn't necessarily require that you must conquer other people, whether they deserve it or not. Meanwhile, civil war among the Persians was affecting the fortunes of Greece. In 401 BCE, the younger Carus rebelled against his brother Artaxerxes II, enlisted Sparta's aid, and recruited an army from the thousands of Greek and other mercenaries left idle in Asia by the sudden termination of the Peloponnesian War. And Kurash the Great, Cyrus the Great, is the most likely candidate for Dhul Qarnayn in the Quran. Zul Qarnayn in the Bible. The two brothers met at Cnaxa between the converging Tigris and Euphrates. Carus was defeated and slain. and all of his army was captured or destroyed except a contingent of 12,000 Greeks whose quickness of mind and foot enabled them to escape into the interior of Babylonia. Hunted by the king's forces, the Greeks chose, in their rough, democratic way, 3 generals to lead them to safety. Among these was Xenophon, once a pupil of Socrates, now a young soldier of fortune, destined to be remembered above all by the Anabasis, or ascent, in which he later described with engaging simplicity the long retreat of the 10,000 up along the Tigris and over the hills of Kurdistan and Armenia to the Black Sea. It was one of the great adventures in human history. We are amazed at the inexhaustible courage of these Greeks, fighting their way on foot day by day for 5 months through 2,000 miles of enemy country, across hot and foodless plains, and over perilous mountain passes covered with 8 feet of snow, while armies and guerrilla bands attacked them in the rear and in front and on either flank, and hostile natives used every device to kill them or mislead them or bar their way. As we have read this fascinating story, made so dull for us in youth by the compulsion to translate it, we perceive that the most important weapon for an army is food, and that the skill of a commander lies as much in finding supplies as in organizing victory. More of these Greeks died from exposure and starvation than from battle, though the battles were as numerous as the days. When at last the 8,600 survivors sighted the Euxine at Trebizond, otherwise known as, their hearts overflowed. As soon as the vanguard got to the top of the mountains, a great cry went up, and when Xenophon and the rear guard heard it, they imagined that other enemies were attacking in front, for enemies were following behind them. They pushed ahead to lend aid, and in a moment they heard the soldiers shouting, "The sea! The sea!" And passing the word along, then all the troops of the rear guard likewise broke into a run, and the pack animals began racing ahead. And when all had reached the summit, then, indeed, they fell to embracing one another, and generals and captains as well, with tears in their eyes. For this was a Greek sea, and Trapez, a Greek city. They were safe now, and could rest without fear of death, surprising them in the night. The news of their exploit resounded proudly through old Hellas, and encouraged Philip, 2 generations later, to believe that a well-trained Greek force could be relied upon to defeat a Persian army many times its size. Unwittingly, Xenophon opened the way for Alexander. Perhaps this influence was already felt by Agesilaus, who in 399 BCE had succeeded to the throne of Sparta. Persia might have been persuaded to overlook Sparta's aid to Coras, but to the ablest of the Spartan kings, a war with Persia seemed only an interesting adventure, and he set out with a small force to free all Greek Asia from Persian rule. In what respect, he asked, is the great king greater than I, unless he is more upright and self-restrained? Yeah, that's what to look at, character, not, mere political power or wealth or whatever. When Artaxerxes II learned that Agesilaus was easily defeating all Persian troops sent against him, he dispatched messengers with abundant gold to Athens and Thebes to bribe the cities into declaring war upon Sparta. The effort readily succeeded, and after 9 years of peace, the conflict between Athens and Sparta was renewed. Agesilaus was recalled from Asia to meet and barely defeat the combined forces of Athens and Thebes at Chronia. But in the same month, the united forces of Athens and Persia under Canaan destroyed the Spartan navy under Cnidas and put an end to Sparta's brief domination of the seas. Athens rejoiced and set to work energetically with funds supplied by Persia to rebuild her long walls. Sparta defended herself by sending an envoy, Antokidas, to the great king, offering to surrender the Greek cities of Asia to Persian rule if Persia would enforce among the mainland Greeks a peace that would protect Sparta. The great king agreed, withdrew his financial support from Athens and Thebes, and compelled all parties to sign at Sardis in 387. The peace of Antokitis, or the king's peace, Lemnos, Imbros, Skaros, were conceded to Athens, and the major Greek states were guaranteed autonomy, but all Greek cities of Asia, along with Cyprus, were declared the property of the king. Athens signed under protest, knowing that this was the most disgraceful event in Greek history. For a generation, all the fruits of Marathon were lost. The Greek states of the mainland remained free in name, but in effect, the power of Persia had engulfed them. All Greece looked upon Sparta as a traitor and waited eagerly for some nation to destroy her.